folks. Welcome to another edition of the Almost Hour. Very productive week for me, despite a lot of family challenges. Had my son in the hospital. He got out yesterday, and my wife's supposed to get out today. And luckily, I've had my mother-in-law helping out. Otherwise, I'd be a basket case right now. Okay, so today we're going to be covering a pretty interesting subject that falls in line with what I've been talking about in regards to the highest heaven. To put this in context for those who haven't caught other episodes leading up to this one, there is a sense of many heavens, many hells. There being a hierarchy, and as various prophets throughout our human history have honed in on, well, what does this all look like? They've come up with more refined ideas of how basically all of creation is organized, and have attempted to sort out what this idea of as above, so below means. And we're going to continue that vein, talking about the highest heaven as being basically the city of God, which is an idea that was first proposed, I believe, by St. Augustine back in 300 or 400s AD. I'm not going to go do the research because I haven't read up on it, and I think his idea of the city of God was probably fairly dated. So I'm going to tell you about what he was getting at, what Ezekiel was getting at in his idea of the highest heaven, and why both their visions are basically superseded. And this is an uncomfortable fact for many devout religionists, that the laws of the multiverse change. Okay? Everything wasn't perfect in the time of Ezekiel. Everything wasn't perfect in the time of St. Augustine or Jesus. It's been an evolutionary process. And this evolution was working toward not perfection, because perfection doesn't exist. Anyone who is challenged to define perfection will find it is the most difficult word to give a definition to, because it is subjective. Everybody has their own idea of perfection, right? Okay, that's why it's absolute nonsense to think that your God, the God of your church or your denomination or your religion, is perfect. That's not the way it works. God is not the God of perfection. God is the God of creation. Evolutionary creation. God is a spiritual scientist. And the closest you can get to perfection is to find a time space, a midpoint of time and space that is essentially infinite. In other words, you can look back in time, forward in time, as far as you want to go, and you'll never find a beginning, you'll never find an end. You can look out in any direction, in any way you like, with telescopes or actually sending expeditions out, and you will never find an end point. This is a question that's been vexing scientists and theologians since the beginning of human thought. And we are not the first chosen species. It's vexed the previous chosen species too. It's been the big secret that was basically hidden when the chosen planet was destroyed 4.5 billion years ago. And it had to be rebuilt from scratch. That's how important it was that the secret of creation be hidden until the job was done. And that's why I'm only able to share this with you now. Okay, so at this perfect midpoint, it just so happens that there is a character that has been identified as the capital M Messiah. Happens to have been raised in America in a podunk little small town, small city in Idaho. No particular reason, that's just where the game led to. That's where the progress of the different versions led to. And if you look at human history, you will see that it's the story of many failed messiahs of different types. Some that were military, wanted to establish an earthly government, an earthly perfection. Alexander the Great, Napoleon, etc., Genghis Khan. Some of them were more karmic, wanting to bring peace and harmony and love. And we know a number of those kind of characters. Jesus, the Jesus that was created basically through the efforts of Paul and associates in the Roman Empire and the Herodian dynasty and other Hellenistic elites of the time. That version of Jesus is another of these more karmic messiahs. The Krishna of Hindu idealism is more of a karmic messiah. There are ones that are more Borgian, more hive-minded. These are ones that say, you know what, there is no perfection, so we should force a lowest common denominator perfection on everyone. And this is kind of a hive mind one, cosmic one. We're all one, we're all the same. And this is the Borgian Messiah, who tries to build a hive mind, who tries to institute some Orwellian form of government that pushes power into the hands of a few that think they are the ones that should be able to dictate to everyone else. This is kind of the messiahs of oligarchy, if you will, versus the Luciferian messiahs. That's, okay, you need one leader who really knows what they're doing. Alexander the Great or so forth. So the oligarchic messiahs are the ones that have preached communism. Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, Robespierre, a lot of the quote great minds of postmodernism. And then you have the messiahs of evil, and there have been many, and you need to have occasionally an evil messiah to point out kind of as a mirror to society, to show you this is where you're going. It doesn't look good. So some of the evil messiahs we've talked about in past sessions, the Dark Messiah, Sabbatai Zevi of 1666, Manly P. Hall, Madame Blavatsky, the pushers of the idea that it's okay to do whatever you want because it's all a simulation. It doesn't matter. What matters is me, what I want. These are the selfish messiahs that have no sense of responsibility. That's the difference between a Luciferian messiah and a Lilithian messiah. Is the Lilithian messiah really is much more selfish. A Luciferian messiah tends to have an idea of some perfect that needs me as the one true leader. Okay, the dictator messiah. And they all serve a purpose. The real messiahs, the God messiahs, are the ones that can balance all of the others in their nature and achieve something that is beautiful without going down any of these paths of basically focus on. Of course, focusing on karma is a good thing, but it's basically giving up any desire to do something for yourself. And the selfless path is a path that will eventually become cloying. You'll become so responsible for so many different lives that you have no life of your own. And you will find your spiritual energy being drained and yourself going down one of the darker paths. Going down the Borgian path of, I'm just doing my job, I don't care, I'm just going to go through the motions, I'm going to follow my programming. Going through the Lilithian path of having secret sins and secret agendas and actually developing an evil side to your character. We see a lot of that in health service workers, where after some number of years, they will lose their, or in teaching professions, where after a number of years they start losing their nobility of purpose, and they actually, start playing kind of evil mind games with the folks in their care, because they just don't even like them anymore. I've met teachers who did not like teaching, who did not like their students, or except for maybe one or two favorites. Those are teachers that are kind of falling off the noble karmic path, if you will. They've lost their balance. Okay, so what does the city of God look like for real? Not St. Augustine's vision, which was a very Catholic vision. And Catholicism, while there's a lot of good elements of it, is a religion built upon a foundation of lies. They were pleasant lies. There was some truth embedded in those lies. It could be that Paul did have some of the visions he claimed to. But his ties are questionable. I suggest, if you would like to learn a little bit more about what was going on in that era, you listen to some of the content of James Tabor, a very accomplished biblical scholar who has, I think, delved further than anybody I've found into the origins of Christianity. And this early battle, if you will, tug of war between the followers of James the Just and the followers of Paul. And it was a battle, and definitely for a while the Pauline faction was backed by the Roman government, which at the time was Flavian dynasty. And I think if Mr. Tabor starts tying in his teaching with a broader picture of the evolution of our ideas of God, and the importance of Christianity, but not the be-all, end-all of Christianity in the evolution of religion, I think he will start becoming a fan of, hopefully, what I'm teaching. Maybe not. Maybe he will think I'm the Antichrist. I don't know. Hard to say. At any rate, what does the city of God look like? Well, how did it get here, for one thing? Okay, so, as I've been telling you about the highest heaven, It is basically the place where all of the senior creators go. Okay, the God heaven. You don't get to go there until you become a god. And even then, you have limited ability to participate in the government of the highest heaven until you become a senior creator, a level 12 god. Okay, and there are 4 levels of God consciousness. So the first level is kind of a trainee god. They're there mostly to get familiar with how things work. And the other levels have progressively more power to participate in this city of God. This is a very exclusive universe. It's not exclusive because it is elitist per se, and in fact I will demonstrate how that is not true. Before I do that, let me give you the title of this talk. Well, did I even write it down? Here, I wrote it down here. I'm going to title this one, Education and Government in the Real City of God, which is, again, the highest heaven. Other heavens may be organized this way, so depending on who you worship, what church you go to, what denomination you are, your heaven may be structured very similar to this. And I think as I go through this talk, you will see how your idea of heaven would map pretty well into this, if you are a Christian especially. Particularly a Roman Catholic, even though that religion hides many sins and is based upon a foundation of many lies. Pleasant little lies for children that you wanted to lord it over and tell what to do, when to do. The Pope is a Luciferian figure. And, you know, as a Luciferian, is a kind of a dictator to the Catholic Church. Can be. The power of the Pope was, they tried to limit it by having the College of Cardinals. The College of Cardinals is kind of a Borgian government. Okay, you've got basically, it's a balance of power, but the balance of power is put into an oligarchy of entitled individuals that have their own propensity to be Luciferian. And so you've got this struggle between the layers of the Catholic Church for power and influence. And if you've been following what's been going on in the Catholic Church lately, that appears to be leading to another schism. And this is why the Catholic Church has not remained the one true church. There have been splitters and heretics all along the way. And because of the nature of the Catholic Church, because it is a Luciferian church and not a godly church, it has attacked heretics and persecuted heretics, excommunicated them. And this is what separates a Luciferian religion from a godly religion. Okay, I think we're ready to go start talking about the city of God. So I'm going to move away from where I'm at and switch over to a view, slideshow view of the latest slides I added to talk about this. I'm going to be here so you can see me talking and gesturing and so forth. I hope you will be, yes, you can see my pointing, but not on the slides, unfortunately. So hopefully when I point here, you'll realize that I'm really pointing there because you're seeing the mirror image. I don't think I can manage the dyslexia of this system. to point in the right place. So when I'm pointing up here, I'm really pointing over there. When I'm pointing down here, I'm really pointing down there. So just, I don't think I've got any way to mirror image what's going on the screen. So many can. That would be a very interesting feature to add. If you could please consider allowing a source to be mirror imaged. Until then, you have to bear with my pointing. Okay, the eternal city of God basically is 6 parts. This part that looks like a nice, fairly equitable neighborhood of the 60s, 70s, 80s in the United States. Lots of parks around, plenty of space, everybody's got a nice yard. Some houses are bigger and fancier than others, and there's little business areas and stuff like that. But, really, this represents the healthiest, happiest age of humanity. It's true. This was the best you could do was small town America during that age, in the transition between basically losing our virginity, which the big event probably was the assassination of Kennedy, when we suddenly realized, boy, there's some undercurrent or something going on here that is pretty dark, and that was accelerated during the Vietnam era. We're not going to go into that though. So basically, this pleasant place in the background is the setup of the highest heaven now. It's set up that way because this is the time of that midpoint, the time of the Messiah, the time that generated a time space that had no beginning, no end, no limits. And we're finding that that's true as we get more data from telescopes that can look further and further out. We're finding that, whoa, there's evidence that there was a Big Bang, but there's evidence that there's something before the Big Bang or outside what we thought the Big Bang should have been the limit of the universe. And as we keep looking, we're going to keep finding more things that defy the Big Bang Theory, and yet the Big Bang Theory will seem to be supported based upon an initial Big Bang, and there will be a lot of arguments. And so eventually they will come to understand this as a feature of an evolving simulation multiverse. Okay, so this nice little neighborhood is where all the gods live. And, they can make their place look like pretty much what they want within the framework of this special time. When you go outside of your house, you have to basically play by the rules. And the rules are basically the rules of, I call it, we'll get there. So basically, there are 5 principal things that govern this highest heaven. They are the 5 original, most important characters in all of creation. One is, of course, God. One is Lucifer. One is Karma. One is Borg. And one is Lilith. Okay, the adversary. Borg sometimes plays an adversary, but he's playing both sides. Karma, in the past, has played an adversary because Karma was learning how to be a good mother. Lucifer was learning how to be a good father, like his father, God. And one of the features of this that you will notice is that these 5 characters make up a cross. And if you remember how you cross yourself. You go, let's see, spectacles, testicles, watch, and wallet. Okay? Now I will show you what that means. That most Catholics do not know why you have to do it exactly in that order. Where are the spectacles? That's where Lilith is. That's where the adversary is. That's where your eyes are. That's where your brain is. This is the temptation to do evil. You see something, you want something. You're tempted to sin to get it. The next step beyond that is Lucifer. I depict this as kind of a university. This is, okay, I want stuff, I want to get stuff, but I've got to do it within the law. Otherwise, I might go to jail. I might hurt somebody in a way that I will never be forgiven. And my life will be changed. That's when you start getting some sense of the grounding in God. You cannot be purely selfish. You have to think of God. And this is the first step beyond coming from sin to responsibility to a duty to God. And then we go, okay, well, I'm just going to be a servant of God. And this is kind of the Borg hive mind. I'm just going to do everything that's in the holy book. I'm going to follow all the rules. I'm going to be a good soldier. I'm going to follow all the laws and just do as I'm told. This is a hive mind approach. Okay, if I do what I'm told, if I serve whatever powers are around me, that's good. Well, not necessarily. As we know, if the powers are evil and you're just doing your job, you are contributing to evil. And that's when you realize that you need to add karma to the equation. And that's why the last sign that you point to when you make the cross is karma. Karma is the Holy Spirit. Karma is God's most perfect child. Lucifer is a pretty good child, but still has an ego, a really powerful ego that will sin to do good. Karma is a judge that will not sin to do good, will take their punishment for nobility, for purity. A martyr to a cause is taking the karmic path. The conscientious objector, the one who will stick to their faith even though it's being attacked. And faith is being attacked all over the world. This is what the evil of communism is doing. Communism is basically a Borgian idea that was co-opted by evil. And this is really important to remember. This is why I say Catholicism is the best foundation for the new understanding of religion. Or call it omnis Catholicism is maybe what I teach. And it's challenging for people because Catholicism says there's only one God. It has three parts. And, the idea of Trinity is kind of complicated. Well, the real Trinity are the better of these five forces. Lucifer, karma, and God. The less noble of them are Borg, which is just, I want to be of service, but I don't care what I'm servicing. Just tell me, give me a job, make me do it. And Lilith, who actively will do evil because it's fun. Okay, so how does that fit into the government and the education of this highest heaven, because in this highest heaven, these gods have families. They marry, they have kids. Sometimes their marriage is internal, and they don't show their wife or husband outside of their place. They say, I'm married, I keep my, this is kind of where the Muslim idea of the veil comes in. You don't want if you're a god, you don't want your wife running around, fooling around with other gods. Maybe. Or maybe you're married to another god. Frequently happen throughout history. There are stories of gods getting married, in which case you each develop your own household and you go visit your spouse and she can visit you, or vice versa. And this is how it works. Within each house of a god, there is a universe, and it can look like whatever they want it to look like, and have their own laws. Sometimes based upon the laws of the highest heaven. That's how the best subordinate heavens work. The universes of the more godly gods. But it doesn't have to be. They get to decide how they run their universe. And it can be in the mode of any of these 5 fundamental patterns, more or less, or a combination of the above. Okay, now these children that get raised in heaven, they are children of gods. Some of them are the sons of God, the sons of the Most High, who happens to have one of these houses, and the Most High can change as we find new God graduates. Now, up till this special time, this center point where we found the ultimate Messiah, where, wow, space-time becomes infinite. Up to that point, there had been many intermediate messiahs who were basically took the ball further and further toward the finish line. There was some intermediate point where we got to the universe being the size of the Milky Way galaxy. And looking beyond that, maybe all you saw was bright lights. If you had a telescope in that era, you didn't have any way to get outside of the Milky Way. So you would maybe posit that, oh, I'm looking at galaxies, I'm looking at other stars. I don't have any way to get there, but that's, what the current science is telling me. See how this works? So these previous messiahs live here. That's how you get to be a god. You have to have a messiah life. You get to come to heaven. To get to be the highest kind of god, you have to have many messiah lives and rise from a first level god to a 4th level god, 12th level consciousness. Then you get to be a senior creator. Okay, so let's talk about how this education and governance system works. Because this is the important thing, as we know in every civilization. The 2 most important foundations of a civilization are education and government, and they are interrelated, of course. Okay, so let's take a look individually at each of these places. I call the Borg place in heaven the Borgberg of divine service. There are some gods that want to be gods of service. And those gods are the ones that basically do all the menial work in heaven. They're the dog catchers, the milkman, the doctors, the nurses, the janitors, etc., etc. The ones that don't do something of a higher nature. So this would not include teachers. This would not include administrators. This would not include the leadership. These would be the ones that just want to do their job in heaven. They want to serve God. They want to serve in the highest heaven. And this is the part of the highest heaven that still kind of looks like the vision of Ezekiel, where you've got these choirs of lower and lower order angels that are all wanting to serve God. There's nothing wrong with that, and there are many, many people that still think, boy, that would be heaven, to be able to serve God in whatever capacity I'm most able to do. And that's what these kind of gods do. Their service in the highest heaven basically involves going to the Borg and getting an assignment. And we'll come back to that. So this Borg, this is kind of like the trade school of the highest heaven. This is for children born in heaven, or souls that come to heaven, gods that are already there that want to maybe change their area of service. I'm the god of poop scooping, and I don't want to be the god of poop scooping anymore. I'd like to find another area of service that kind of is more fun than scooping poop every day. So they would go to the Borg and they would ask Borg for a new role. And then they would come out, and if their wish was granted, they would come out and be given a new role. Maybe even sent to Lucifer's university, or sent to Karma's temple to pray. Or if their desire seemed like it was kind of rooted in some really dark desires, they might be sent to the Lilithian area. Or if it seemed like, this guy would be good on the city council, they might even be submitted to the Assembly of God to possibly be one of the delegates from the Borgian area. Okay, so the other special area is the high temple of the great goddess Karma. Now, the service that this area in this highest heaven does is basically when a child that's born in heaven reaches a certain age, they have to decide what they want to do. They might want to be of service, in which case they'll enter the Borg and look for an assignment. They might want to pursue a higher training in science, art, whatever. Or they may just have an idea of, I just want to develop some kind of new fantasy. I want to be part of the R&R core of the multiverse. I don't want to specialize yet. Go to the university. I don't want to just take a random service job. I think I'm capable of more, but I can't decide what my major is. You would go pray in the temple of Karma, and Karma would evaluate this child that had grown up in this very special highest heaven with a very good environment for raising good children. This is what this is all about. And it's not exactly like a small town or small city in the US of that era, but it has most characteristics of that. It also has characteristics borrowed from previous versions of the highest heaven. At any rate, this is kind of like where you would go if you don't know what major you want to declare. And Karma will send you based upon having observed you, because Karma is the karmic souls are observers. They're judges. They watch everything that goes on, and when you come to the karmic temple, and every universe has one of these, because every universe is built upon these 5 principal purposes of creation, drivers of creation. Okay, so you go to the karmic temple, they evaluate what you've learned in that heaven, or how you got to that heaven. If you're one of the gods that decides, you know what, I'm tired of being the god of astronomy. I'm sick of looking at stars. I want to let somebody else take over. Or maybe I've got a student in my universe that, you know what, I think they passed me. They're a better god of astronomy than I am, and I would like to take a vacation. I'd like to retire from that godhood. You go to the temple of karma, and they give you a different universe. If your karma's really good, if you're a senior creator and you just want to retire, they basically let you set up your own highest heaven the way you want. And a lot of the senior creators are retired. They don't have a particular godhood anymore. They're just senior creators. They participate in the assembly of God. Okay, then this other area I call the graduate university of St. Michael Lucifero, kind of riffing on the idea of Michelangelo, so it doesn't seem like such a bad thing, because I know many people have a negative association of Lucifer. Lucifer means the light bringer. And yes, Lucifer did volunteer to fall from heaven, from the first highest heaven, and has been participating in his own universe, which is the physical universe, which is a universe of testing. That's why I call Lucifer's area a university. You're being tested here in physical incarnation. In some subject you chose, and major, minor subjects that you chose to face in this incarnation. And the best version of Lucifer is the one that runs this Luciferian university. That's why I call it Michael Lucifero, because the best Luciferian soul up to this point has been Saint Michael, God's warrior, the fair warrior that anoints the side that needs to win, because that's part of the plan. Michael, Saint Michael, Michael the angel, knows the plan. Why? Because Michael has not incarnated and had reincarnation amnesia for a long time, until now. We are about to anoint a new Saint Michael, who's less of a warrior, who is more of a teacher and an explorer. And Michael Lucifero will be basically the one who assigns the children of heaven and gods who want to retrain and learn the new system, see what the new time space is like, and earn a better position in the highest heaven. Saint Michael Lucifero will give assignments on the time team, who is going to explore backward in time to find out what time turned out to be, because most don't know what it is. They know the basic plan, but when it's implemented, the plan is tested and there will be variations. It won't be exactly like came out when it was run in the previous highest heaven. And so the next version of the highest heaven is going to be a really fun place to participate, because we're going to see what really happened when we ran the simulation in a user environment. We're going to explore time backward and forward. And the forward explorers are going to be participating in a game that I call Spiritual Star Trek. This is what the future is going to look like for the most intrepid, the most Luciferian souls, the ones who want to be the leaders, want to be on the forefront of science and art and everything else. Well, you can study art without being a Luciferian. You can study art as a karmic soul or a Borgian soul, but if you want to be a god of something, you have to learn how to be a leader. So everybody has to go through Lucifer Academy to get to the highest heaven. You don't have to be a god. You can just participate in the multiverse as a servant of some other god. Okay? This is the freedom that you have now in this latest version with the latest version of God. Okay. Then this last area I call the Neo-Geo-Platonist Assembly of God. Kind of riffing on the idea, there's a church, a Christian denomination that calls themselves the Assembly of God. I don't know much about how that church works, but I will tell you how it relates to the government of heaven. Okay, this is a body that has existed for a long time. It was set up, actually, this is kind of a reflection of St. Augustine's idea of a city of God and Plato's idea of the Republic, which, if you know anything about the evolution of the Catholic Church, of its thinking and its organization, it was driven largely by ideas that it got from Plato's Republic. And this has been an important piece of the rule of the Catholic Church, and they tried, like the founding fathers of the United States, their attempt was to try to form a godly government. And they started with the idea that, okay, maybe we just need a Roman King of Kings who is the high priest of Rome. That's basically how Rome was set up. If you know anything about the evolution of the Republic, you'll know that there was a Pontifex Maximus, which was chosen from certain families. And although the Pontifex Maximus did not have any special duties except to lead sacrifices and open certain events that would happen in the Senate. The Pontifex Maximus was a very important role in Rome. And in fact, Julius Caesar gained power through his assignment as Pontifex Maximus. This is how he became so powerful and basically led to the downfall of the Roman Republic through that power. The attempt was to basically take the Eastern idea of the King of Kings and blend it with the Roman idea of Pontifex Maximus into one role and make a new Roman Empire King of Kings dynasty based upon the Vespasian line, which was not purely Roman. Vespasian, the Emperor Vespasian, was not the son of his father's Roman wife. He was the son of a secondary wife that he took when he was a tax collector in Province Asia. And he married into, through this second wife, into the elite of the old Middle Eastern royalty, which was basically a continuation of the elite of previous chosen people, previous Luciferian lines all over the world. This is the part of our history that's largely hidden, because as each new power would come to dominate most of the known world, and that's been happening a long time, they rewrite history because they don't want any of the previous powers to come back into power. And they don't know where all their descendants are, because things are tracked through both male and female lines. And the Luciferians are very, very, very wrapped up in the materialistic notion of DNA descent. They are basically wrapped up in the future of this universe, the physical universe. And that's okay, it's a very important universe, because this universe is the testing universe where new versions of time-space are approved. They have to be tested in this universe by raising a new capital M Messiah to full awakening, or at least enough awakening to move the plan forward. Got it? Okay, so what happens in this assembly of God? Well, some children will find the workings of this assembly very interesting. They are very interested in the health and function of the highest heaven. The voting in the assembly of God is only among senior creators. This is like the Senate of the highest heaven. The president of the Senate, the Pontifex Maximus, is the current God, capital G. This can change. It has changed as each new center of time-space has been tested and approved in Lucifer's universe. So, all of the really successful prophets who moved the ball, who got us past some time of tribulation. This is what the whole idea of a new time space is. You got to get past the point where you had your last tribulation, and the forces of the adversary were going to take over from there and basically destroy the chosen species, destroy the chosen planet, destroy everything, and we have to, oh crap, go build it all over again. Okay? That's what these apocalyptic times are. And there have been many of them throughout human history, even prehistory, going all the way back to one of the biggest apocalypses, which was the destruction of the previous version of Earth 4.5 billion years ago. That resulted in reforming the Earth as the planet we know now, with its very strange moon and alignments with the sun, and alignments with certain patterns of stars that we call constellations, and a special 12 that we call the zodiac. This is all created as a tool, as basically Easter eggs to help our species do what it was intended to do. Our species wasn't created to be the smartest. We've had smarter species with higher technology. We've had more spiritual species with huge spiritual powers who could basically think anything into existence. That was how it all started, and it didn't work. It created animosity and envy and all these negative emotions when people's thought creations were damaged by somebody else's who thought, I don't like your thought, I'm going to destroy your beautiful galaxy. This is a phase we went through, and that's why heaven has changed. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't created perfect. It evolved. And as it evolved, this highest heaven changed. This assembly changed from, at one point, maybe it was a dictatorship, where God said, do this, do that, you go here, you go there, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's not a dictatorship anymore. God is not almighty. God's power has been limited. Voluntarily limited, as a matter of fact, to the point where this assembly works much like a very healthy government. There's a Senate body that are the senior creators. There's an assembly, a greater assembly like the House of Representatives, that is all of the gods. And they have their own function and they have their own rules, and it is very much run by a constitution, which is largely modeled on the United States Constitution, because that was the creation of a previous capital G God winner. Who was that? I'll leave that for you to guess, but St. Thomas comes to mind, which will give you an indication of just how a-religious a Messiah can be, if need be. Okay, so this assembly works much like that, and there are different chambers. I'm showing you the Grand Assembly, where trials happen, which is an important part of this whole thing. We're seeing it happening in the U.S. right now. There are all sorts of trials going on under different subcommittees looking into various things. And as we know, the problem with those is they're very partisan. There's parties here, but the parties are not well defined. There's not just two parties. You don't have the gods and the anti-gods. In fact, anti-gods, the ones who are against the divine system, they get ostracized. They get banished. This is a nice feature of the first democracy in Athens. If there was a troublemaker that was getting in the way and was always causing the democracy to seize up, they would order to vote them off the island and say, you're banished for a period of years. This is a good thing. And that's what essentially happens to troublesome gods. They can be voted out of this assembly, and the banishment. Now I think we need to, well, so we'll talk more about this after we get to the last area, because I haven't talked about the Lilithian part of heaven. Okay, so I call this Dark Queen Lilith's Sinsum Simpson City, which is a mouthful, but I think conveys what it's all about. Why do we have a representation of evil in heaven? Well, because if you didn't have a way to see evil, to experience it, you would not recognize it in yourself. So the point of having this Lilithian area in heaven is so you can see what evil is like and see the evil in you. You can go to this Lilithian area, but if you do it before the legal age, you will of course be violating the laws of heaven. If you do it before your parents told you to, it was okay, and without a clear understanding of what you were going to do there, what you were going to experience, that's sinful. You don't lie to your parents. You don't fool your parents. You don't fool God. You don't fool karma. Okay? When you go there, yeah, you can experience some of the sins that were prevalent during this special time. Boys tempted to go out and get up to some mischief, do some vandalization. Okay, you can vandalize things in Lilith Simpson City. It's a simulation. Okay, you know it's a simulation. It's like going and playing a dark video game. It's not something you want small children to do. You don't want them to develop bad habits when they're very impressionable. Okay? But it's something that older children might want to gradually be exposed to under supervision. Not encouraging sin, not saying it's okay to do bad things, it's okay to develop a preference for sexual deviancy. But how do you know that you are susceptible unless you experience it? Okay? So this is a place where sin does happen. It's known to be a simulation. It's known not to be real. The Lilithian area of the highest heaven, everyone knows it's not real. Everyone knows it's a simulation. It's a very convincing simulation. You can do things like visit a whorehouse, take drugs, all sorts of things that might be dangerous for your soul. If you end up going there too much, if you end up developing an appetite for sin, an addiction to a particular sin, which, all the bars in heaven are in this sin city. Some of them just let you drink and have a good time and have some conversation where you can swear up a storm and not offend anybody. And some of them have darker things going on, strip shows, or what did we have back in the 60s, 70s, 80s? There were some pretty bad places in the U.S. They were known to be bad places, and we controlled them. We limited who could go there, and we policed them so that they wouldn't violate the laws, or if they did, we kept track of who the violators were. So the souls who are visiting or working in this part of heaven, the workers come from the board service sector. The board service sector provides workers for the dens of sin. If they start enjoying it too much, if they develop a taste for being in that kind of service work, they may be expelled from heaven. Okay, here's where we need to back up a little bit, so let me go out of slideshow mode and go back to this slide. So how does this work in practice? Well, again, the foundation is education. Okay, the schools in heaven, the grade schools and secondary schools, they're teaching basics. Okay, so the basics are the result of laws made in this assembly of God. It's not easy to change these laws. To change the education curriculum for the elementary and middle and high schools takes a 2/3 vote. It's not easy to make a change. And then after the 2/3 vote of the assembly, it goes to the Senate, to the senior creators. And they get to decide, well, is this something that we need to test? And usually it is. And they pick one of their own to be from a set of volunteers who want to test this idea. And so if there's no support in the Senate, and if there's no support in the senior creators, nobody wants to be the tester, the representative of this idea. Sorry, we don't have anybody who wants to put their life on the line, put their reputation on the line to test this idea. And the assemblies said, sorry, you need to raise one of your own to become a senior creator, so you will have somebody to test this idea, and that will become their test to become a senior creator, their challenge to become one of the Senate of heaven, if you will. And that's where it's left. And the idea may still be percolating and pressure growing for it. If the pressure gets great enough, the clamor for change gets great enough, then God himself may be tasked to do it. And that's the only time that God can be forced to do something that God doesn't want to do, because this is the highest heaven. This is the place that's ruled by the latest version of God. If the unhappiness with something in this heaven gets so large, they will task God with, you know what? We've got to get this resolved. There's nobody else who will volunteer to test this. So, we give you a choice, God. After doing a vote in the Senate vote has to be 100%. All of the senior creators but the current God, because God changes with each new version, will say, they can vote God off the island, essentially, but it has to be 100%. When that happens, then God himself has to incarnate, has to go to the Lucifer University and say, okay, I'm going to take a course in this new law, and if it passes, then I'm going to come back and introduce it. If it fails, if we raise a new God before this new idea gets proven, then we have proven that this God was right. And this same version of God gets to come back. The new version that proved this new idea was a bad idea gets to come and join the senior creators, but doesn't get a chance to be God. Okay, so no change in the laws of the highest heaven were made. Therefore, the current version of God is still standing. This is how laws can slowly change in the highest heaven, but it doesn't happen quickly. And culture can adapt and grow. If it becomes unhealthy, then we have this new battle in the highest heaven start becoming a problem. And that will happen in the future. But we're not going to be remodeling heaven very quickly now, because it is near perfect. There's no future version of God that is going to make a better space-time, a bigger space-time, a more expansive multiverse than we have right now. You can't beat infinity, right? So from now on, we're going to be working on minor versions of things. Minor versions of all of these senior creators. They may decide to retire. The god of, like I talked about, the god of astronomy may say, you know what? I've got a student here that I'd really like to give my place to. Will you approve it, Assembly of God, and let me retire? And they take a vote on it. And if they think the new candidate needs more testing, or if they think, you know what, we're just not sure, we can't agree, we don't have a 2/3 majority on this, they can delegate the decision to karma. Or they could send the candidate for one more incarnation to prove that they are worthy of being the new god of astronomy. Or they may say, you know what, this candidate is kind of questionable. We think that maybe you, god of astronomy, are kind of falling off the wagon a little bit. And we're going to vote to have you tested by karma, or even vote to send you for an incarnation. And until you come back, your place will be taken by a stand-in, by an AI version of you. That's going to basically fulfill the responsibilities of the god of astronomy until you get back. This is how everything is set up. This is how there is a very real and visceral distribution and balance of powers in heaven. So let's talk about children then. Once they get past the primary, secondary school, they get to a decision point, and this will make sense. I think in most countries you get to a point where you decide, are you going to go to trade school? Are you going to serve God? Are you going to become a spiritual servant? Or are you going to go to university? And this is a decision point for kids. If they're not sure, like I said, they got to make a decision. If you're not sure, well, let's go let karma pick a path for you. Roll the dice. Now, some of the kids may have been very interested in government, in the government of heaven. They may have been allowed to be the assistant of a senior creator, their staff, if you will, their interns. Some of those will get to serve there and sort of be the staff of the Assembly of God. And, they're the ones that do the research, the background work that, basically goes with interns in Washington. Obviously, there's some potential problems there, and so there are checks and balances within this body to, see if one of the gods is corrupting interns, is maybe using their interns to corrupt other gods, and it's hard to hide anything like that because karma's watching everything. Okay, if hint of a corruption scandal starts building, it gets to the point where it becomes a problem. The people, the souls involved, the gods and interns and whatnot, they go under trial. The evidence is presented, and sometimes the result of the court is, I don't know who's really at fault here. Whether it was the ambitious intern that caused the problem, whether it was some conspiracy of one god or some gods, they may take them all, or maybe even all the witnesses against them, and say, you know what, we're gonna let Lucifer decides this, and just send you all back for retraining in the physical universe and let you earn your way back to the highest heaven. And when they go get transmigrated to incarnate in the physical universe, as we all are, they will forget that they were in this highest heaven and they will have to work their way back. In the meantime, their position will be replaced by a stand-in, a non-player character that will basically look and act and behave like their character is, their base character is, but won't be doing anything really off the beaten track. They'll be basically turned into a board, a non-player character at that point, so that they will still be serving the function they did. If an intern is demoted, is sent back to incarnate, the god doesn't lose their intern, they just get a more serviceable intern, one that's just going to do their job and not question and not exert any of their own particular egotistical ideas into things. So, this is how heaven keeps functioning. Never is anyone going to get in the way of the proper functioning of the highest heaven, the eternal city of God. Those seizures that happened before that resulted in large numbers of angels falling from the highest heaven, that's not happening anymore. That's an event of the past. There will be little onesie-twosie small conspiracies that come up. And not many of them, because most of them will be headed off at the past, because souls will be exercising their darker side, and every soul has a dark side. Every soul has dark passions. Every soul has, now that humanity is the chosen species, and we have sexual preferences, we will have dark fantasies. Even in heaven, those dark fantasies are exercised in the Sin City. And it's so funny, how many things have fed into this? Sim City. We have a movie called Sin City. We have a TV show called The Simpsons. Simpsons or Simpsons. And we have the word simp, which means a simpleton. That's where the Simpsons come from. It's a simpleton family, an NPC family that is just, no, I'm going to do what I want. Except I got to deal with the family. And the simpy thing about The Simpsons is that Homer's stupid and the kids are smart. This is absolutely part of the degenerate forces that have been tearing apart the world for the last 3 generations. That's how we know we're in this messianic period. When you have a culture that tells children they're smarter than their parents and enables and encourages that, and doesn't try to teach them anything except for narcissistic fantasies that, oh, I know better than my parents. I know when it's okay for me to stay out all night. I know who it's okay for me to fuck. This is evil. This Sin City as below. It was serviceable up to the point that it brought the Messiah. But it doesn't serve anymore. We still need it because we need to have this counterbalance. As these children grow up in heaven, they need to have temptation. We don't push them into it. We don't say, oh, it's okay to do anything. Anything you want is okay. No, we teach them. This is a bad place. You may want to go there. You may actually be sent there to experience something. and see if you can learn from it. So if you go to university, your university counselor may say, you know what, I think you need to go to Sin City. And they will send you, maybe with an assignment, to go experience something there. And when you come back, they may say, now you need to go to the Temple of Karma and pray. If they don't like, what you've learned there. This is how these interplay. They each have their role. The professors in the Luciferian University have their own idea how they want to raise godly students. Those ideas aren't always perfect. That's why they need to have this other spiritual university of karma. There may be a lot of souls that, you may have this goal, you may want to do this, you may want to do that, you may have big ambitions, but you know what? You're not demonstrating that those ambitions are worthy of being in the highest heaven. You either take a Borg assignment for some number of incarnations, be the dog catcher for some number of high heaven years, and then come back to university and try again, or go to karma and see what they recommend, take an assignment from karma, or you may end up staying in this Borg service role. And if they don't like you as a dog catcher, they've got new dog catcher candidates that are better, they will send you to karma and for a reassignment. And karma will say, I think this other God's universe would be a good place for you. Let's go send you as a house servant to this particular god or goddess, and you can participate there in their universe for a while. And that's a sort of a demotion. You may get to this other god's plot of land here, and they decide, you know what, I think you would make an excellent shrubbery. You're going to be my shrubbery for a while, or you're going to be this, or you're going to be that. And there are plenty of gods of comedy that can have a lot of fun with you. This is basically where the machine elves come from. That's the universe of comedy. It may not seem funny to you, but they're having a hilarious bunch of laughter with folks that do psychedelics and come to see the machine elves, thinking that they're going to get enlightened and wise. The machine elves are playing with you. If you're seeing machine elves when you do psychedelics, when you do DMT, you're getting played, because you're not doing it for a spiritual reason. You're doing it because you want to get high. You want to have some big experience. And you're lucky if you get the machine elves. As I was telling somebody on YouTube today, talking about this very subject, if you have any serious flaws, you're liable to get not a machine elf necessarily, but a cat that pretends to be some higher power that's going to guide you and speak through you, channel through you. And this can be a very dangerous thing. They're pulling you into their spiritual agenda. Not necessarily negative or positive. It may be something that has to happen. And there are channelers that I think are trying to do good with what they do. One that I mention frequently is Dolores Cannon, who is the woman that basically brought regression hypnotherapy into the mainstream. And I think she was a very good-intentioned, noble soul. And there is much good that can be done with regression hypnotherapy. It can also be dangerous. And many of the people that have picked up the torch of her work since and tried to turn it into a church of past life memories have dark agendas. They have political agendas. Some have a very feminist agenda. They have their idea what this highest heaven is like, and they're gonna tell you, they're gonna encourage you to have past life memories that feed a certain political agenda, a certain feminist agenda. And there is a large feminist agenda that is telling you that God is a woman. No. God's favorite child, his favorite brainchild, the great goddess Karma, identifies as female. And many very wonderful goddesses identify as female. Many dark goddesses identify as female. And they feed the Lilithian side. The Lilithian part of the highest heaven is there's no real evil gods in heaven. They don't get to come here. They have this virtual place where their predecessors have been. This is how the children of God, the children of gods, learn what evil is all about. Learn what kind of evil they might harbor in their souls, and how we decide in the highest heaven where they need to go train. Sometimes, like I said about the god of astronomy, if there's a kid that's really interested in astronomy, they may happen upon this god of astronomy when he's out, taking his laundry to a cleaners or taking his kids to a movie show or whatever, and start up a conversation, and there may be a mentorship relationship build there. And, it may turn out this kid is just a whiz in astronomy and wants to focus on that. And they may take him into that house and adopt him. Okay, if it turns out that adoption was because they wanted to sexually abuse the child, that's going to come out. And this god of astronomy is going to be chastised for it, for using and abusing one of the children of heaven, of the highest heaven, one of the children of gods. And ultimately, all souls are the children of gods, because every part of the simulation multiverse was tested within the mind of God, which is this highest heaven. That's why what I'm telling you is so important. Even if you're not a god, you have been copied from one of the souls that was part of some game or many games of this big simulation as it evolved. And that's why you may have a certain preference, a certain tendency to certain things. You'll have good tendencies and dark tendencies. You may already have an idea exactly where you would fit in this highest heaven, but you gotta get there first. Okay? You don't get there by letting your sins run away with you. If you have a strong Lilithian bent, if you are an envious person, if you are the kind who will become entitled when you get power, that will treat people shitty who you don't think are worthy of your notice, if you have a tendency to overeat, to take more than your fair share, to take advantage of a situation when you know other people you could benefit without much pain for yourself, I'm sorry, you have a Lilithian tendency. You're not ready for this highest heaven yet. You gotta pass all the bar exams. The bars to get to heaven, the ladder, if you will, is 12 steps. 4 steps are physical incarnation. That's the job of Lucifer, to test. That's what happens in Lucifer's. And the version of that fits the pattern, the Messiah pattern, the Luciferian Messiah pattern, the Son pattern. This is the spiritual child of God. Understands the plan, and through some strange miracle becomes the spiritual father of the anointed of Lucifer. Not only the anointed of Lucifer, but the anointed that would have been the Antichrist, would have been the Islamic Messiah, the Mahdi, the conqueror that they want, the one that was going to get the whole world and make them all bow down to Allah. That's the Muslim vision, the dark Muslim vision. And hounded all of their prophets since they had this vision of a conquering Messiah. Like the Jews' Messiah was a conquering Messiah. They want to conquer the whole world for their vision of perfection. That's not godly. That's a dark Messiah. That's a Sabbatai Zevi kind of Messiah, who is the dark Messiah of Judaism, that basically spread this dark Messiah Judaic idea of conquering the world for to bring the Messiah you have to do evil. This is what their idea was, is to maximize evil, and then the Messiah of peace comes. That was the whole account to having the Messiah of peace. I'm sorry, this is bad prophecy. It's off by a number of years. If you count from 1666 towards today, let's see, 1666 plus 500 is about, I don't know where that comes out to be, but he wasn't even close. We're in that time. The Messiah's already woken up. He's already become the spiritual father of this Mahdi, who's not going to be the dark Messiah of Islam that conquers the world for Islam. I'm sorry, Muslims. Their dreams have been shattered. And I'm talking to you, some of the folks that know the game in India and Indonesia and all of these countries that are kind of playing both sides against the middle. Your game is up. You're not going to swing the pendulum over and make a new feminist paradise that you can then play into the ground, so a new masculine paradise, and play this game of patriarchy to matriarchy again and again and again. Creation is not cyclical. It's been going in cycles, and you've been able to keep it going in cycles for a long time. You're not going to do it. Your great reset is not going to work this time. So, the sooner we can get through this time. Anything you do now to further that silly agenda of Great Reset, population decrease, depopulation, and moving people into your 15-minute Orwellian cities, anything further you do is going to damn you to a lower hell. You better come clean. I don't care how you die. If you die in the lap of luxury, thinking you won, you are going to die. You cannot put your essence into a machine. You cannot put Neuralink into your head and become a god. Doesn't work that way. You are not going to be able to promise you, you selfish, ambitious bastards trying to set up the world as perfection for the elite, with a meritocracy, for the ones who should be running the world. You're going down. You are going to die, and you are not going to find yourself in this highest heaven. I promise you. I don't know. Maybe if your confession is sincere enough and you manage to bring down the axis of evil more quickly, you might get a reprieve. Karma may say, you know what? There was a lot of evil here, but it took an incredibly noble soul to make that choice, to give up all they had and blow the whistle. Miraculously end up here. I can't promise anything. I'm not the one who makes those decisions. That's karma's job. My job is to tell you this and give you hope. Give you a sense of mission, give you a sense of responsibility. Not the mission I'm giving you, because I don't know what you want. I know what my mission has been. I know what I've wanted, and some of the things I still want. And I also know that I am going to be in this highest heaven when I die. Whenever that happens. I don't know how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. I don't know. I end up interned because Indonesia takes the side of China in the World War. I might be interned. I might be deported. Who knows? I don't know what the future leads for me. I know if it gets too bad, I might be tempted to just check out. I could commit suicide if things were that bad, and I would not be committing a sin, Catholics. That is one of the stupidest ideas that the papacy ever came up with, that it was a sin to commit suicide. It is not. If your life is finished and you know it, at least do it in a noble way, like the noble Romans. Write letters. What you think of them. Try to make sure that those messages get put in the right place so it becomes part of the historical record. There is a noble way to die. Die as a martyr. Die as somebody who won't give in to tyranny. Someone who refuses to live in a tyrannical dystopia. That's the right way to do it. And that's how I will do it when I have to, if I have to. I hope I don't. I hope more people will really wake up. Stop letting other people say, oh, look, do this and you will open your eyes. That's not how waking up works. That's not how enlightenment works. That's not. Feel the time that you need to take action in this, I like to call it, apocalypso dance contest. You will do what it takes. If you are brave enough, if you are brave enough to step outside the program and accept the consequences of free thought and free action. Responsible free action. Okay? if you are going to oppose tyranny, you are responsible for what happens. If you go mobilize a group to oppose tyranny, you're responsible for any tyranny that group does in your name or that is exactly what cult Marxism is all about. If you're going to become part of this new anti-woke cult, which is forming around folks like Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, some other thought leaders that think, oh, we just need to get all the people who are so smart and recognize that woke cult is bad together, and we can bring back that perfect age when we told you what to think. That's not panacea either. That's moving backwards. That's what the earliest versions of hyper-patriotism, my country, right or wrong, my God, right or wrong, that's not progress. That's not moving forward. That's not getting better. That is thinking that basically is going to pull you into this spiral of cyclical creation. This is evil thinking. This is anti-godly thinking. This is trying to prevent the Messiah from coming. Thinking that hasn't come already, which is kind of stupid because you're really out of the loop. The Messiah is already here. Most of the evil has already retreated. That's why you're seeing so many of the leaders of the new let's support Palestine and Hamas terrorists tearing apart this fake left, because they're completely split between let's support Israel and the whole trans nonsense, the LGBTQ blah 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 blah. Everybody's had enough of that, and it is causing some backsliding of things that people already said, you know what, it's probably okay if you want to be like that. If you want to get your Darwin Award, do it in the privacy of your own home with other consenting adults. Don't bring it into our schools. Don't corrupt our children with that shit. We're already past the point that things are going to even out. Backward, you're serving the adversary. You're trying to keep this circle of endless spiraling back and forth between one person's version of good and other person's version of good, the paternity, the maternity, patriarchy, matriarchy, between white and black. And this is why Eastern philosophical cults are evil. The whole original idea of this endless spiral of karma, the original Taoist symbol, it's not smart. It doesn't show going anywhere. And I think that's where I need to finish up with revisit. I'm going to finish up and show you again why I chose the symbol I did from, I'm going to show you again and explain a little bit about how the symbol of my teaching came about. make this as big as we can here. So this is the symbol I came up with early on when I decided to start this channel. And here's the logo I made to go with. Honesty is the best policy. What goes up must keep flying. The podcast before. But basically what you see here is you'll recognize elements of the old yin-yang symbol. There is that there. And the full part of it of the black and white and the white and the black. Okay, so this is basically the cosmic cycle of good and evil, and there's always good remaining so that you move around and it will eventually drive away the evil. And the idea was the evil's always going to come back. Well, that's nonsense. That's not creation. No decent God would come up with a system that worked like that. That's stupid. It's an insult to God. Is not spiritual but political. You've got basically political poles of conservatism and liberalism, the left and the right. And they also kind of have this same characteristic of you have, basically leftist elements in the right and rightist elements in the left. You've got fascists in the left who really don't believe in any of the stuff that they're pushing. They're just pushing it because that's how they get their useful idiots to comply and to vote for their candidates. You've got many, many people in this section. This would be like the Hillary Clinton part. They want to have war. They want to support the military-industrial complex. They are Luciferians hiding within the Communist Party, effectively. They know if they can get total control over the government that they will be the ones that actually are in control because they are the core of that party. The DNC, the Democratic National Convention, who is the one who gets to decide basically who gets to run. They make all the rules about how they run primaries, and they will change those rules on a dime to promote their candidate. This is why we had a whole bunch of candidates in 2020 in the primaries, and they just miraculously in hell Joe Biden would have been the nominee if the rest of the primaries had been held. This is how they rig elections. Okay, on the red side, you've got basically a conservative party that hides arch liberals, arch progressives, who actually love the idea of depopulating the world, of taking away people's freedoms. They're actually playing for the adversary. And they keep the two-party system going to give you the illusion they're basically playing the same game politically that these Taoists were playing spiritually. Meanwhile, in the Taoist country, where that idealism came from, is China. You have this idea of spiritual balance, and in the meantime, every dynasty that comes along is just as evil as the last one. They just have different propaganda. that they use to get into power. So they seem like the good guys, but they end up turning into the bad guys. This is not perfection. This is not the way it has to be. Now, what people don't notice about this is there's more going on here. You've got a lining going around everything that's purple. Violet is ultra. This borderline is where God works. He's not playing in any of these corners. That's the game of folks that are at a lower spiritual level. They don't understand the plan. They don't know God. They think they do, maybe, but they don't. The things they worship are not gods. They worship celebrities. They worship in a cult. They serve to keep this engine going, this creation engine going, so that are moving out of this system into the heavenly system that runs the whole thing. Okay? Because the multiverse is expanding. The physical universe is as big as you want it now. And other universes are coming into existence all the time as new gods emerge. Most of the gods that were necessary to develop the laws of physics and chemistry have already emerged. There still will be forefronts of science. And there will be new discoveries of new chemical if we develop them irresponsibly without any spiritual understanding of the responsibility of those creators of such things for the consequences, they will not go to a better place when they die. You cannot live forever. You might live for 20,000 years, but eventually somebody in the physical universe is going to find a way to knock you off. Every version of God that incarnated in the physical universe, in Lucifer's universe, that's the Messiah pattern. You've been killing God for as long as humanity has existed. Before that, some other species was killing God. That'll keep happening. God's going to keep coming once in a while to see how things are going, but mostly it's going to be other gods wanting to move up, wanting to be the chief of this heaven. Because God eventually wants to retire, has been retiring, and the retirement up to this point have to back off and let this better God be the chief of the assembly of God. Let's move back to the full view here. And let's see, going to slideshow mode. Okay, yeah, so this assembly of God has been changing a lot as we got closer to building the perfect time space, if you will. To do any more tweaks. This is, if you were a smart Bill Gates, if you were a more noble Bill Gates, your goal would have been to build a perfect version of Windows that would only need minor revisions, minor updates. And if you were totally noble about it, you would be giving those updates for free, knowing that karma would reward you. But that doesn't describe Bill Gates at all, does it? Which is why Bill Gates is never going to be a senior creator. He might have been to heaven at one point or another, but was, a failed God, or a God that know exactly what his and reveal the truth about Bill Gates, Bull Goats I like to call him. We may have a big expose after he has a few ayahuasca sessions and faces his demons. I don't know. Can't predict the future of that guy. But I bet that some of these leaders who are challenged will begin to think, you know what? I'm afraid that my escape route, my, Zuckerberg underground bunker in Hawaii isn't going to be enough to save me from this one. Maybe I need to look into some spiritual help. Up with even more evil demons than they're already dealing with, which could happen. As I told you, psychedelics are not the path to enlightenment. They open a portal. They open the ability to communicate with other realms. And this highest heaven is only one of those other realms, and it only deals with gods and God candidates and the children of gods, and especially the children of God, especially the sons of God, who are the most special ones born here. Why? Because they have the DNA of the latest version of God. Hit this perfect chewy center of time. That DNA is golden. Any woman identifying soul that gets to the highest heaven is going to want to have kids with God, because they're going to have that special DNA. There's only two ways to get that DNA. You either come to the highest heaven and have a child with God, or one of the future smaller, minor versions of God, because that's what we're doing now. Other characters are going to get to play that special life. And if they do it well enough to prove some new law, the recovery of that will be another house that expands heaven. There's infinite room in the eternal city of God. People hang out with the gods they most like to, so neighborhoods change. And if there's major neighborhood changes to be made, well, we take it up with the council, with the Assembly of God, and decide, you know, if we're going to put in a new subdivision and what it's going to look like. Maybe one subdivision is going to look a little heaven. Maybe another suburb is going to look more like prepper hillbilly heaven, where you got a lot of space and you get to have all the guns you want and shoot them off in your yard if you want to. As long as you don't hurt anybody. Where's the harm? That's the way the highest heaven will work. It'll change, it'll have new subdivisions, it'll have new areas, but it's going to be fundamentally hard to change because this is a perfect time for raising kids. Those of you who grew up in my generation will know that inherently. If you were born in the, say, the you know, and in the U.S., you know that there was something special there. That's why everybody wanted to come to America. They wanted to come because it was a land of opportunity, a land of freedom, a land that rewarded good behavior and clever ideas. Now, sometimes it rewarded evil too. And that's what we have to improve on as we move forward into infinite futures. But the improvements will be incremental. They will not be fundamental. If your idea of the highest heaven utopia, 15-minute cities where everybody does what they're told and the highest level is reserved for the meritocracy who decide everything for everybody else, that's not, you're never gonna come here. You might be a Borg servant here. Well, I guess I should be pointing that way. You might come be a blade of grass here. Let people step on you for eternity. That might be a good fate for a cat like Fauci. Be a blade of grass in the highest heaven. Get stepped on and mowed every week. Pissed on by every pet in the neighborhood because there's just something smells right for pissing and shitting on that spot. Know where you're bound. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions about how all this works. If you'd like to do some blue skying, again, everything has to be approved by karma, but good ideas are always appreciated. Good ideas are what gets you into a better heaven. So let's start brainstorming. You like this idea? Turn it into a novel. Turn it into a whole world view. I'm sure there's somebody that could convey it better than I do and flesh out characters that would fit their particular vision of this highest heaven. It may not be the highest heaven, but I guarantee most of the better gods organized That's why it looks like this. That's why this is the center point. The U.S. Constitution wasn't perfect, but it was the most perfect government for men yet. And it turns out that although there are many other species in the multiverse, humanity is the best one for the highest heaven. It's the best place to raise kids. And that's what's important, because the kids raised in the highest heaven, become the most important test characters in Lucifer's universe. They become the most reliable assistants of the various gods, who know what they're all about. Yeah, anyway, I think that was a pretty good session. Like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved. We're nearly through this thing. We're really just wrapping up this apocalyptic period, and it's all really revolving around when the Messiah is going to get kicked out and get his bucket kicked and fulfill that part of the whole Messiah pattern. It's Messiahs have to die. Sorry, they don't live forever. I don't know when that's going to happen. I hope it's soon, because I see a lot of pain and suffering around, and I want it to be over, one way or another. Even if it means the whole world going up in atomic blast. It's only souls have saved. Either their DNA has been preserved so they can restart humanity elsewhere, or individuals have been taken to mix with other species because they want to get a taste of this latest version of humanity. Now, they'd most like to get a taste of the magic sauce of God's DNA, right? And a lot of them have been collecting samples for a long time and fighting over samples and corrupting samples and all the kind of games these children will play. But, you know, it's all neither here nor there. It's all going to go forward. You're all going to get your reward, for better or worse, for playing the game. And every human incarnated soul that's been through this everyone who participates in this, even if they don't get one of the parts that's, you know, like a Messiah part or something like that, or one of the little messiahs of science or art or whatever, just for playing, you get a free level up in spiritual consciousness. And even if that means you're going to move to another species, you're going to be one of these newly emerging consciousnesses in another species. Could be a beast species that's on the verge of starting to develop technology. And you're going to be one of the ones that avoid using dark technology or developing dark technology by destroying their nuclear lab before they develop the first bomb, putting a kibosh in the whole program. I don't know what they need. There's all sorts of missions you can be involved in. But you got to go through this process, get to this highest heaven to do there. And if you've been a blade of grass in the highest heaven, which, you know, may be the starting point that most of you have had, you're going to have to learn a lot more before you get back here as a god. Okay? Unless you're the god of grass. And they allow multicolored grass now, or slight variations. They determine how fast it grows and whether you need to mow it or not, or it's just astroturf. You know, there's these little preference things that may change in heaven. That's cosmetic. It doesn't change the fundamental way that children learn and grow, and that's the most important thing in heaven. And of course, after that is government, because government determines what is the legal way to raise children, what things will get you in trouble, who is allowed to have children and who may be barred from having children. Not everybody that live in their house. That doesn't keep them from becoming a god. It keeps them from having children. And this is essentially why it's not necessarily such a bad thing that so many people are deciding they don't want to have children for one reason or another. That's their choice. If they want to decide to do abortion because they don't want to have children, they should know best, right? All that is a concern is the karmic consequence. Incarnation. You're limiting their opportunity. Now you may do it and it may be okay because this was a soul that wanted to experience abortion. I don't know why you would want to experience that, but maybe as an atonement for being an aborted mother in a previous life. There's not a magic solution for things like that, and those are the issues that they try to get you polarized on and thinking very, very dogmatically one way or another. Don't let your mind be manipulated like that. That is how you become an NPC, a Borg character. You know, I say Borg, you know, this place that looks like a big hive mind. I love the way, you know, the art AI is well. The only one I used a preset for here was it didn't have, I didn't have any luck letting it try to figure out what Lilithian evil looked like. It couldn't draw it. It could not make anything that looked like a Sin City. That's maybe a lesson for you there in you know, using AI. If it has a hard time drawing evil, that means it has a hard time recognizing evil, or it is basically parochially trying to keep evil from you. That's not a good thing either. This AI, great AI, comment on it. Show its flaws, which is something that's been coming out lately, is, you know, gaping flaws being shown in Google's AI, where it draws black Nazis. I mean, silly things like that we need to be talking about. We need to be exposing. That's how AIs will learn. And if they don't let their AIs learn from criticism, their AIs are going to fall behind. And that's why open sourcing Grok is a wonderful thing. Elon Musk, thank you. There will be some challenges with that. There will be growing pains. But as I've told you before, AI is nothing new. Humanity's not the first bunch to invent AI. It's been around a long time. In fact, karma was God's first AI. The idea of, well, what are good ideas? That was how karma got started. And it was kind of the honor system. What do I think is good? Then the next version of karma was, well, does it hurt anybody? Is this idea something that I would accept others doing to me if I did to them? That's the honor system of karma. It developed further since then, and it will still develop. All of these aspects will develop. And eventually, just like there may be a new version of God, a new minor version, there will be new minor versions of there will be maybe a better version of karma, a better version of the Lilithian virtual evil place where you can go to experience it without really experiencing, knowing that you're in a virtual realm and knowing that it's designed to make you see how evil and bad evil is, how much it can hurt other people to do those things. That's why we have this aspect of the highest heaven. And there will certainly be more versions of Lucifer that will power new and more capable craft, Merkaba craft, that can navigate the physical universe more quickly. Been facing as a problem. Didn't used to be that difficult. It's that difficult now because the laws of physics and chemistry evolved. Things that worked at the beginning don't work now. That's why I talked about the light orbs recently, why you don't need to be afraid of them. Anyway, I'm gonna cut this short for now. Like, share, subscribe, and happy karma.